Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is a public speaking course called Teach the Geek to Speak. To learn more about it, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Nur Lee Harel, and she is the CEO of EventHandler. She put together dozens of large-scale tech conferences, and she's also spoken on how to become a tech speaker and personal branding. I'm really interested to find out more about how she got into her line of work, how virtual conferences have affected her businesses, how virtual life has affected her business, and any tips that she can offer to become more effective in public speaking. Welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Nur.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You got it. So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you're an expert in developer relations. I don't know what developer relations is. What is that?
So developer relations, a lot of people define it very differently. I see it as a strategy for marketing and company growth for companies that is based on strengthening the relationship between the developer communities and the brand itself. It can either be the company or the product, which means that you can either take it as a sense of a tool for employee branding, which is really common in Israel, where I give most of my, generally all of my consultations right now in developer relations. It's a very strong tool for employer branding to outreach to more developers, but also many companies use it as methods for company growth, how to sell more of their products, onboard more developers to use their products, customer retention, keeping in touch with the developer community to just create a stronger bond between the community and the product or the company itself. That's what it is.
All right. And from the research, actually, even just from the intro, I said that EventHandler, one of its main businesses is organizing conferences. How'd you get into that kind of work? Were you a developer yourself who decided you saw this need, or did you just come completely from the outside?
Completely outside. I admit I cannot code to save my life. I've been in the production business for about 20 years, a bit more. And so EventHandler is actually a brand owned by 500 Tech, which is a front-end consultancy, which is very dominant in Israel. It's very well known to be the forefront of Angular and React mainly. So it's a front-end consultancy. And the former CTO of that company used to go to some of my international festivals that I used to produce for dancers. It's like a completely side hobby thing. And when they started up this great community for Angular developers and React developers, and they started doing conferences, and they were looking for someone to help them create a good experience for the developers. And it just started off as like just one production, and then it went full time. And then I did developer relations for 500 Tech for a few years. And then we started EventHandler because it outgrew the front end realm, and they're doing back end conferences as well. And it's like super amazing. I've been mentoring other tech communities around Israel. It's really awesome. I get kind of like sucked into this world, and it's like the best ecosystem to work at in all my years of a producer. It's just like the community is so much fun, and the people are like so, giving and into knowledge exchange. So it's really great. I can curate material, and the vibe of the people who come to the conference is just, it's the best atmosphere out there. So I'm very fortunate to kind of like bump into this niche of people and get to have the privilege of working with them. So that's how I got into that.
Nice. So have you noticed any differences between organizing tech conferences and conferences that you've organized in the past? And if so, what were those differences?
Oh, absolutely huge difference. I think it's because most of my conferences are from the JavaScript realm, but in general, there's a huge culture between developers of knowledge share. The whole open source culture is very, it's not only common to share knowledge, but also very welcome. And it's like everybody shares knowledge and are used to learning by other people sharing knowledge. So it's very easy to get high quality content because people are very eager to share, which is pretty amazing. Like I've produced other conferences where people were more like considering like their job security, wouldn't really rush to share their knowledge and trade secrets, right? Because they kind of like have this little ego wars. And it's something I found completely opposite when it comes to developers, because they help each other all the time, and their passion is sharing and accumulating knowledge through the sharing and through the networking. So it's a huge difference, and that's why I love it so much. So yeah, huge difference.
Okay. And then in terms of the people that speak at these conferences, is there, I guess, what have you noticed in differences between tech conference speakers and speakers from the different type of conferences that you put on in the past?
Well, I think that the speakers with the higher exposure, like the stronger brand, like a personal brand as a speaker, were usually people who tend to be either like super technical and not so charismatic, or the exact opposite, like super charismatic and that's all they have, and they don't have to be so much savvy in their topic, but they're just like really good on stage, so it's really fun to have them on your stage. And in developers, you have this whole range of different skill levels and different like charismatic skills on stage, but it doesn't matter because the common denominator is the passion for sharing knowledge. So if you want to get on that stage, if you're passionate about sharing what you have, if it's a stage or it's like blogging or whatever, you're gonna get there. There's this like space for everybody, and it's like super inclusive, and I love it. It's way more like the bar to get into that public speaking is lower because it's more approachable, because it's, oh, you want to come and speak, cool, come and share your knowledge. That's why it's so different.
Okay. And when it comes to the tech conferences that you put on, because you said so many people that participate in them are eager to share their knowledge, I'm guessing they're willing to share it for free. Like they just want to be able to talk about things. Do you ever run up against people that are professional speakers, and because it is their business, they expect to be paid to be at your conferences, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic right now, especially because in the past, when it comes to a physical conference, you have enormous amount of expenses that you have to spend in order to create a physical conference, from the venue to insurance, the AV equipment to catering or whatever. So it justified charging a lot of money for your ticket. And then you have the flights and the hotels and everything, all the expenses. Usually what happens is that conferences that are for profit would at least reimburse flight and hotel for the people, even if they come and share for free. And sometimes they would have a budget for paid speakers. So in some professions, it's very common, but in developers' realm, a lot of people actually do it for a living, as in being a developer advocate, which is a profession by itself. But even if the developer advocate is not in the exact job titles, it's in the interest of companies to have employees within being influencers by going and talking and representing their brand. So I think that the payment or the reward financially, if there is, should come from the company itself, unless the company is like unless the conference is so much for profit, and it's not like more community oriented. It's a very fine line. I mean, like you have conferences that are super community oriented. There's no profit behind them. I know that, for example, a lot of like Kubernetes conferences are very much like that. It's their policy not to have any profit around it, and it's like only sponsor based, and the conferences are free. That's one thing. Then you have larger conferences. My conferences are commercials, so we find a way to compensate the speakers. Sometimes we can. It's very rare that we can actually afford, because usually those conferences tend to break even, to be honest. It's very rare that we can afford any kind of reimbursement, but we pay for flights, we pay for hotels, we take them around Israel, we spoil them, we give them swag bags. There's a lot of like a benefit package. It's just really hard for a speaker to actually demand payment, just because there are so many speakers out there that it's kind of easy to find people who, oh, that's your job to go and speak to conferences because you're a developer advocate for this and this company. So yeah, I will take that person who's a developer advocate, and because that person won't ask me for money and have the courtesy of paying for their flight and paying for their hotel and everything. It's a very difficult territory. Like I myself, I'm a speaker, and when I go and give a private talk to an organization, yes, I will ask for payment, but that's because I do not have business opportunities as a result of attending that event. If I go to a conference and I speak at a conference, I don't need to be paid because it serves my personal interest, because it generates leads for me. I can sell my consultation services. I can sell my public speaking services. I can sell. So it's also, it varies. Like, it's very to the personal discretion of the speaker if they wants to charge payment or not. But for me as a conference organizer, you got to be like really, really special and unique and without any competition if you want me to pay you money to speak, besides covering your flight and everything. And that's why right now it's a hot topic, because speakers, okay, so you don't cover my travel because I'll be broadcasting my talk from home, and you're not going to cover my hotel. And so kind of like the what's in it for me. So speakers have started charging a certain amount of payment. And if it's an online conference for profit, meaning you charge, I don't know, $200-$300 for your ticket for an online conference, yes, I would expect a reimbursement for the speakers. I run online conferences for $20, right? Like $20 per person. That would cover the expenses of like my website and like ad campaign. It's not like oh my God, I took $200 for a ticket. So it makes sense to reimburse speakers. And right now there's a big buzz about it right now, if virtual conferences should pay speakers or not. And I totally get that.
Yeah, I understand too. Just the way you explained it makes perfect sense. If it's a part of a person's job to do it, then why would you pay somebody else coming from the outside to do it if someone's willing to do it for free? So that just makes business sense. I'm curious to find out more about. Oh, sorry.
I said it's not like a conference speakers who attend physical conferences don't get something in return. We pay for your vacation in a foreign country, right? Like it's usually the cost of that is more than what I would pay you as a fee to just come and speak. So, it kind of breaks even nicely.
All right.
Yeah.
Not too shabby for sure. So
yeah.
as you know, we're in a pandemic now, and there are at least as far as I know, not a whole lot of on-site type meetings going on. Everything is virtual. How has that affected your business with EventHandler?
Oh, it affected a lot because most of our livelihood is from physical conferences in Israel and New York. So obviously we had to cut back a lot, staff-wise too, which was very painful for me personally. But also we decided to cancel some of the conferences that we know that their experience is based on the physical interaction, like connecting with people face to face and not just virtually. And like the conference, we have a conference actually at the end of next month called Angular Alp Experience. I don't know when this episode will be up in the air, but it's at the end of November, and it used to be a physical conference running from 2016. Every year, the Angular community in Israel would meet up and would have a huge, amazing conference. And now it's switched to a virtual conference. So obviously we dropped the price, like 90% dropped it. And then we changed, we're actually trying a completely different format. So we tried our previous conference was JS VidCon, and that was for a whole day, 4 tracks, 12 hours. We got Node and Angular, React and Vue, everything like JS. And we noticed that the same people won't stay the whole day. So when you take a virtual conference for a whole day, it's really hard to just sit passively in front of a screen and listen to talks all day, even if you have some kind of engagement. So what we did, we changed it up. So because it's towards the Israeli audience more, but of course international. So we did it in the evening hours, like after work hours, and we kind of like split it to 4 nights instead of just one long day. So you're done with work, you come home, you grab a cup of tea, beer, whatever is your thing, and you just sit, and then you can listen to talks or go to like breakout rooms in Zoom and like chat with speakers or mingle. And we have like all kinds of like little games, like a virtual scavenger hunt we're doing like in between like the talks to keep people like focused. So that's the best we can do, because I think that the content, the world is flooded with content right now. People are doing virtual meetups all the time, and it's like easy to watch the recordings after. So we're overflowed with content, and people, what they miss is the interaction, the network, the hallway talks, which is like the best part of conferences. So I would hope that more conferences would do the same as we, and switch to more engaging activities. So you got the content, but you also have to enable some kind of a platform for people to engage and mingle and just like talk to each other. So that's a huge difference, because in the past we didn't have to worry about how to make people mingle. They would, right? Like we would have like hangout corners and conversation starters and put the speakers in the hangout counters, and conversations would just like spark up by himself. Now we really have to motivate people to engage with each other. So it's super difficult.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And you're absolutely right. There are a whole bunch of virtual events happening now, many for free. So I would think that it'd be really difficult to charge people for these conferences, because they're kind of getting used to getting things for free. Has that been an issue for EventHandler with its conferences?
I think that the only issue of the whole announcement of conferences for free is the fact that it's very, very misleading. So first of all, if a conference is free, usually people won't take it as much as serious as a paid ticket, right? That's why I like the symbolic up to like $20 per ticket. That's kind of like a serious fee. And I don't want people to just sign up and not show up, because if I tell a speaker, listen, we have, I don't know, 200 people signed up to your session. I don't want him to or her to show up at the session and there's like maybe 50 online, and it's also very misleading. I think this whole trend of free conferences is very misleading for sponsors. I see a lot of conferences out there, virtual conferences, saying, oh, we're expecting 15,000 attendees. Excuse me, you're not going to get 15,000 attendees even if the event is free. That's just not nobody's going to take your conference seriously. And if you go to a sponsor and you tell them, like, I personally, I pride myself for having like really good relations with my sponsors, and I hate the misleading. It was like, if you hear, oh, you're going to have 15,000 people at the conference, it was like, oh, so yeah, take my money. And I tell honestly my sponsors, okay, so I'm expecting 1,000. That's like a very, very fair estimate compared to what we've sold so far and the rate of our sales right now. In previous conferences, I was like, I'm expecting 1,000. So like they look at my 1,000, they look at their 15,000, right? Pretend 15,000, and I'm in trouble, right? Because I asked for $20 for my ticket, and they're like, oh yeah, just sign up. Just sign up. So I don't get it. I think it's disrespectful for sponsors, and I think it's disrespectful for the speakers. I think that those people like invest a lot of time and hard work in their sessions and should be taken seriously. So
for sure. So when it comes, actually, this is an interesting question that I have regarding sponsors. So at least from what I understand, when conferences were on site, perhaps it was easier to get sponsors because they could actually speak at the conference. They could have booths at the conference. They could have signage everywhere on the agenda, all throughout the conference. So perhaps it was easier to convince sponsors to actually sponsor conferences. When these conferences are now virtual, is it more difficult to even get sponsors? And if you were to get them, what can sponsors expect to get out of sponsoring virtual conferences?
That's a really good question. Actually, one of the things I do as a consultant is talk to communities and other conferences about how to gain sponsorships, also like all kinds of entrepreneurships on getting sponsorship. So when you sell a sponsorship, when you offer, when you set up your little brochure and think about what you can sell, you think about the exact thing. What can you offer? So it's not a question of is it hardest, or it's like what's the hardest, but it's just like different, because the what you give the sponsors is completely different. So it's more into the branding, and how prominent is your branding placement, and where are you branded, how much of a presence you have during the broadcast, where are you seen, how much exposure you're getting. Can or can you not communicate directly to the attendees? Some conferences sell the data, right? Like you get the data of everyone who registered. I, as a personal policy, would never do that. That's like my privacy policy towards my attendees. But I would email blast them like every day. I have like the daily agenda of the stuff that are happening today and like community activities throughout the day. Here are a few words from our sponsor. That's still like a message that is delivered directly to the audience from the sponsor. So you got virtual booths, which is like, it could be just a landing page, and it could be like something like 3D, whatever. Every conference has their own virtual version of a virtual booth. And what you said about, is it harder to get sponsors? Right now, since we're in a global pandemic, a lot of companies were financially hurt, or right now not recruiting because they were financially hurt. So less companies for a while now don't have the budget of sponsoring conferences. But after a while, they realized that they cleared a lot of budget from other things. For example, they don't pay for a site right now, right? So now they have money to spend. So I think we had a serious decline, and now we're going way up when it comes to like the availability of sponsorships. And also because people are, getting the hang of working remotely, so they're back to recruiting again. So it was very hard at first, but now I think it's getting better. And also it opened the door to sponsorships from overseas, meaning for product companies who cannot send delegates to a physical conference. So it's not worth it for them to sponsor a local conference, but now everything is virtual. So they can present their product and send their delegates, whatever, to participate in the conference when it's a virtual. It opens a lot of doors, actually. So it depends on how your marketing team, if you have a marketing team for your conference, a team can compile one person too. Whoever takes care of your sponsorships, recruitment. So it just needs to kind of like think of it a little bit different, a bit out of the box, and realize it's not that hard limiting. I just encourage, again, be honest with your sponsors on how many people you're actually expecting to get.
Yeah, yeah. You certainly can expect all you want, but you're going to get what you're going to get. That's for sure. But when it comes to, go ahead.
Right. I said the best advice I can give a sponsorship recruiter is, surprise your sponsors. Meaning, if you think you can get over 1,000, say 1,000, so they'll be surprised and have a good experience with you, and would like to continue working with you again. Because if you promise 1,000 and they get 500 attendees, they will never work with you again. So it's better to like lower their expectations and give them like a really good sponsorship experience. That's my personal take on it.
Oh yeah, under promise, over deliver for sure. When it comes to the virtual conference, I guess trend. Man, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but that's the word I can think of right now. Virtual conferences are the norm currently. When in time, do you think this is going to be something that's a mainstay, or are we really going to look forward to going back to on-site conferences, or maybe a hybrid of both?
I think that for a while, at least throughout 2001, it will have to be a hybrid of both. I know that some countries already can see in the horizon when they're going to be allowed back to have like physical conferences. Like in Israel, for example, which is in a pretty horrible state right now. We're still far away from normalizing our relationship with COVID. So before February, we won't be even allowed to fantasize about getting together more than 100 people in one room. But some countries are already found ways to enable that. So I think that throughout 2001, we're not going to have full-on big conferences with international guests, because air travel is still going to be an issue for some countries, or just not worth the risk. So it's going to be hybrid for a while, but I think people are thirsty to reconnect. I think a lot of speakers who have been doing it for a long, long time miss that connecting with people. That's the really fun part. I had a lot of people dropping out of my lineup because they said, you know what, it's not fun for me anymore to sit at home and broadcast my talk. So, or just have another Zoom meeting, but this time with like conference attendees. So once it's going to be possible, oh, wow. People are going to be thirsty for it. Like really, I miss it terribly. And I think it's actually a really, really, really good opportunity for new speakers to rise during that time and build their reputation and network and personal brand during that virtual era. For when we return to the physical conferences, they will already have like this really nice resume that will open doors for them in the physical conferences, like to be flown in for conferences. Like it's a really good opportunity for new people. So I really hope a lot of people measure that.
When it comes to the technical conferences that you put on, you did mention that a lot of people are really gung-ho about sharing their expertise. but perhaps they're not the best presenters. But you did mention that also there were people that were very charismatic, but not all that technical. But for the people that are technical, but perhaps not the best presenters, what tips can you offer to make it so that their technical expertise can be taken in by the people that are in the audience?
Well, that's the beauty of it, because a lot of times I would, patrol between the halls, making sure everything's okay, the AC in the right temperature, the sound is good and whatever. And I would look at the stage and would go like, oh, this person is not very charismatic. I hope people are not disappointed by their talk. And then after the talk, people would come outside and be like, wow, that talk just like blew my mind. And I realized that charisma on stage is great. It's a nice bonus. But people, when they get a value from your talk, they don't care if you're charismatic or funny. Some people think, oh, they expect me to be amusing on stage. No, you can give like really good insight on what you know without the showmanship. I actually hear more feedbacks of too much show, not enough content, than I hear about good content, but where's the show? I very rarely hear that. Maybe I would like, okay, so he was like so insecure and his English was not that great. So I think he had a lot of things he wanted to say, but didn't know how to say them. So a lot of the talk, kind of like blurred out. But I never heard like, oh, it was a good talk. I wish she was more charismatic. I'd never heard that. But I did hear the opposite. I was like, there were so many jokes. Like, oh, come on. Tell me about this library. I want to hear about this library. Stop with the jokes. I want to hear knowledge. So yeah, don't worry. You're good. That's all I can say to these people. You're good. Yeah. Okay. And never letting imposter syndrome stop you. Never.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said about that. Content is I guess key when it comes to especially these technical conferences. So even if you're perhaps not the most, charismatic, as you mentioned, the most charismatic person, as long as you have the content, perhaps people can look past the charismatic part. That's why I kind of like tech people in a sense, because we're way more about the substance than the flash.
Exactly. You get a lot more respect for knowledge or delivery of knowledge than about showmanship. So much more respect. And I noticed it actually when I talk to a lot of I try to mentor and help out as many women as I can to get more onto tech stages. There's this wonderful platform called Women on Stage. It's like womenonstage.net. It's like a platform for female speakers to advertise themselves and for event directors to find more female speakers, which is really awesome. We need more of those on stage. So I try to help out as much as I can. And what I hear actually is not, oh, I don't have enough showmanship. It's like, I don't know if I'm technically good enough to be on that stage because I'm not the best person who knows the most about this and this topic. And I understand that this is something that is holds back a lot of new speakers from trying to get into that speaker circuit. And I always tell them the same thing. No matter how much you know, I can guarantee there's someone in the audience who doesn't know. Even if most of the audience already knows what you're going to say, it's enough to have at least one person in the audience who doesn't know what you're saying, and you've made an impact because you help that person to get better at what they do. So you don't need the entire room to not know the material. It's enough to just have one person, and that person is going to be a better developer thanks to you. So here's another thing that they should keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when it comes down to it, if everyone had that kind of mentality, there'd be probably very few speakers at any of these conferences because everyone would be thinking, I could possibly learn more, I could possibly know more about this topic. But you could say that for any topic at any time. No one knows everything about anything.
Yeah, and usually you see the speakers after their talk go to another person's talk. Not just to support and be friendly, which is also a really awesome thing in this community, but to learn because everyone evolves always. So yeah, we all have something to learn.
I noticed you earlier on, you said you're a speaker as well. What do you speak on?
Oh, personal branding for developers and how to submit CFP. I talk about using developer relations as means for employer branding, everything in that realm. So most of my talks recently or workshops are personal branding for developers. That's like my main thing. And again, how to fill CFPs, call for papers.
Wow, you must really like
Special.
really like it with the developers in the tech audience. It's great because we certainly, people in the tech world can use that assistance for sure. So thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, with pleasure. I'm always happy to help, happy to connect on LinkedIn, and happy to help people like review their CFPs, because I've read, I don't know, thousands of proposals for talks in the past few years. So I kind of know what works well and what doesn't. So it really, especially that's why I like when it comes to women specifically, or the LGBT community also, I like to help as many as possible. The little tweaks that you can do in your talk proposal to give you like a little extra edge and make you stand out more. And personal branding is super critical, especially in a virtual age where you cannot go and network with people and just like talk your way into places and circuits. So you have to work on a strong personal branding. So that's really important.
Wonderful. You did mention that people could find you on LinkedIn. Is there any other way that you would like people to be able to contact you?
Well, my Twitter is a bit numb. I always find myself I put more effort and practice what I preach when it comes to Twitter. I admit I do not do that. So yeah, Twitter, it's Harel Nur, HARELNUR. And LinkedIn, Nur Lee Harel. If you do connect to me on LinkedIn, please mention that you're here through Teach the Geek, right? Because I get a lot of LinkedIn requests from people I don't know, and usually I don't approve everyone. So just mention that you're here from Teach the Geek, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek Interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. The first offering of the platform is Teach the Geek to Speak. It's an online public speaking course. You can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Nora.
Thank you so much.